All right, we get a lot of questions about people asking, do I need to replace my turbo? Do I need to send it in for warranty? Or is my stock turbo bad? Do I need a new one? We're gonna go over some tips and tricks and some general guidelines today to try to help you to understand whether it's time to replace your turbo or send it in for repair. There's a lot of misconceptions out there and a lot of things people really just don't understand. We're gonna go over those things briefly in this video, maybe reference a few other videos we've made before, but stay tuned if you wanna learn whether you need to replace your turbo. So we got here a brand new Garrett turbo. We're gonna get up close and personal with the compressor wheel and the turbine wheel so you can see some of the normal characteristics of the turbo, and then we'll cut to a few shots of some abnormal characteristics. First things first is we get a lot of questions about play. How much play is normal?
But generally speaking, a little side-to-side play is normal, but there shouldn't be any in and out play. So why do you feel side-to-side play? That's when you move the compressor wheel from side to side. It should get pretty close to the cover without touching it. Where that comes from is you have journal bearings that ride on a shaft, and these journal bearings, these brass bearings, ride inside the bearing housing, and they ride on a hydromatic film. So when you have oil pressure, it fills up the gap, and it is very hard to see, but you can actually rotate the bearing side to side on the shaft, and when it's in the bearing housing, it actually rocks back and forth ever so slightly. And when you add those tolerances or those clearances together, that's what you're feeling when you move it side to side. When there's oil pressure or oil freshly gone through it, you'll feel less. If the turbo's been sitting for a while and dry, you might feel more.
But there should be zero in and out, and this is how I like to describe in and out. If you could push the turbine wheel towards the compressor or push the compressor towards the turbine, there should be zero in and out play.
All right, as you can see that side-to-side play, especially focus in on how close this is to the side of the wall. See how it moves back and forth? That amount of play is completely normal. I mean, it looks like it touches the side there, but it doesn't. You really have to zoom in to see, and then you can see a big gap. Side-to-side play is completely normal on new turbo and used turbos. But how much is too much? You typically know because it gets so close that it looks like it's touching. If there's any amount of excess play, it will rub the housing. You'll see marks on the compressor wheel and on the housing. Typically right where the surge ring is, if you have one, you'll see it kind of start to dip out like a little groove right there where it's sticking out into the surge ring. That's how you'll know if there's too much side-to-side play. This is a brand new turbo, straight from Garrett. They all look like that. You see that oil? That's totally normal on a brand new turbo when you're installing it. These come pre-lubricated. When they're sitting there, oil can leak out, especially if it's sitting up on the side like that. Or if you flip it over towards the compressor side, it's normal. These have piston seals in there, so there's always gonna be a little bit of gap. Just keep in mind, that bit of oil coming out, totally normal. And if it gets out on the outside of the turbo, you can just wipe it off and clean it. No need to send the turbo back if a little bit of the oil got on the outside. You can just wash it off.
First off, I want to say, do not pull your turbo before evaluating and talking to your turbo builder.
If it's us at KC Turbos, reach out, ask questions. Don't just pull the turbo and send it in, because you might be disappointed when you find out you need to stick it back on to do a little bit of diagnosis. Or if you find out that what you're seeing is completely normal, you pulled the turbo for nothing. So please reach out to your turbo builder or reach out to us before pulling your turbo. We'll let you know whether it's time to pull the turbo and send it in. We have a whole nother video that goes into great depth on pushing oil and whether it's a CCV issue or not. But very quickly, it's normal for turbos to push a little bit of oil, especially if you have a CCV hooked up. The oil gets sucked in the turbo. It could be on the inlet of the turbo, on the compressor wheel of the turbo, and the outlet of the turbo. And the airburst turbo does push a little bit of oil. That's normal, very small amounts. But if you're getting excess oil or you're seeing smoke because it's burning so much oil, you need to look into whether it's a CCV issue. If it's not a CCV issue, it might be time to send your turbo in or get it repaired. Check out the video in the comments if you want to learn more about whether you have a CCV issue or whether your turbo's damaged and is burning oil. Over time, it's not abnormal to have a little bit of debris get past the air filter. Whether your air filter's damaged or whether it wasn't installed right at one point in time or there's a hole in it. But if you have small nicks on the compressor wheel, you're probably fine. It's not a big deal. If you have big chunks of the compressor wheel missing, or I've literally seen it where the wheel looks sandblast and now you have excess clearance, it's probably time to upgrade, send your turbo in, or change out the parts. But little tiny nicks, totally normal. I would run it. You can upgrade if you'd like or change it out, but it likely won't affect the longevity of or the performance of the turbo. There is no amount of contact with the compressor cover that is okay. If you see the compressor wheel rubbing the cover or the turbine wheel rubbing the housing, there's too much damage or there's bearing play or something has happened to the turbo. You need to get it sent in and repaired. But be careful. I've seen debris or dirt marks, that makes it look like it's rubbed. You might want to clean it off a little bit, check and make sure it has rubbed, because you don't want to send it in for nothing if it's just maybe dirt or oil or soot that makes it look like it has rubbed the cover. Turbo noises can be very hard to diagnose. Boost leaks, exhaust leaks, cracked exhaust manifolds, cracked bellows on your up pipes, they can all sound like bearing damage. It's incredible how much cracked bellow on an exhaust pipe will sound exactly like a compressor wheel rubbing on the cover. But here's a quick check to see whether it's an exhaust bellow or your turbo. When you shut your truck off, the turbo will continue to spin down for maybe 10, 15, maybe even 30 seconds. The engine will stop within a half a second. So if you shut your truck off and you continue to hear a ting, 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 it's probably something wrong in the turbo. If you have a really high-pitched, loud squealing noise and you shut the truck off or your car off and the noise goes away immediately and you can see the compressor wheel still spinning, the compressor wheel is probably not rubbing anything. So that's like a quick check, but if you're not sure, feel free to take a video and send it in to us and we'll help walk you through the diag a little further.
We deal a lot with VGT turbos.
So if you're having VGT issues, don't just pull the turbo, contact us. There's a couple of tests you can do and check to see if it's your vanes, your solenoid, a sensor, or in a Cummins application, your actuator. There are tests. Don't just pull the turbo, because you'd be surprised how many times people pull the turbo to send it in, only to find out they had a EBP sensor issue, or their map hose blew off, so on and so forth. So very important. You need to go through the diag of finding out what's going on with the VGT instead of just assuming there's something wrong with it. Because more often than not, it's a sensor issue, a tuning issue, a boost leak, exhaust leak, a blown off map hose. There's a lot of things that can cause the vanes not to operate properly, whether that's in a 6.0, 6.7, a 6.4. But before pulling it, contact us. We can walk you through whether it's a VGT issue, whether the turbo's damaged, whether it's a possible sensor issue. This might seem like a silly thing to point out, but once your turbo gets hot, you're gonna see discoloration on the turbine housing and even maybe the bearing housing. A lot of people see it change color a little bit and they think the turbo's getting too hot. It's normal. These things glow red hot when you're pushing them really hard and getting those EGTs up there. It's normal for a turbo to do that, and it will cause discoloration on the housings. I know I've said it a few times, but if you have any questions or doubts, please contact our customer service department. Give us a call, send an email, comment below, whatever you can, reach out to us and we'll do what we can to help you understand what's going on with your turbo.